The first time I saw her, I didn't believe my eyes. A being so beautiful, so otherworldly. I couldn't tell if I was in a dream or a nightmare. But one thing was clear. She wasn't from here. She had the look of someone who had traveled across galaxies to land in front of me. Tall, with shimmering skin that seemed to glow under the moonlight. Her eyes were like deep pools of stars, pulling me in, making me forget everything I thought I knew about the universe. I didn't know it then, but she was about to show me just how far the boundaries of human experience could stretch. I had heard the legends, of course, stories of alien encounters, mysterious beings from distant planets, but nothing prepared me for this moment. She wasn't the first contact I had imagined. No, she was something far more unexpected. Standing in front of me, she didn't speak at first. She simply looked like she was trying to figure me out. And then, almost as if it was an afterthought, she asked the question that would change everything. "You humans, you really do that to reproduce?" she asked, her voice soft, yet carrying an undeniable intensity. The words lingered in the air, almost surreal. What she was referring to was, of course, the process of human reproduction. But her question didn't sound like an innocent one. It felt loaded, like she was trying to understand a complex ritual, something beyond what I could even begin to explain. I blinked, caught off guard, unsure how to answer. This was beyond anything I had prepared for. The universe I thought I knew suddenly felt much smaller, and the strange alien girl in front of me was the key to unraveling mysteries I never imagined. At first, I thought it was some kind of misunderstanding, some odd communication gap. But then she stepped closer, her gaze sharp and focused on me. "Can I try?" she asked again, more insistently this time. Her words made my heart race, a mixture of fear, fascination, and something else I couldn't quite place. What did she mean by that? Was she asking about human reproduction or something deeper? There was a hidden purpose behind her words, something she wasn't telling me. And as I stood there, trying to make sense of it all, I realized the danger. She wasn't just curious. She was serious. She didn't just want to know what we did. She wanted to experience it for herself. My mind raced, thoughts colliding in confusion. How could I even begin to explain something so personal, so fundamental to being human, to someone who wasn't human at all? I had heard of the human tendency to adapt, to evolve, but this was beyond comprehension. What would it mean for her to understand this process? What would it mean for me? Before I could gather my thoughts, she smiled, a smile that seemed both comforting and unsettling. "Don't worry," she said, her voice carrying a strange calmness. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just curious. Just let me try." The words hung in the air like a challenge. My mind was screaming for answers, but none were coming. Was this some sort of test? A trial of human strength? Was she playing with me, or was there something more to her curiosity? I looked around, but the world around us was still, eerily quiet. The only sound was the faint rustle of wind. There were no distractions, no immediate escape. I could feel her presence, unnerving yet captivating. Her eyes never left mine, and it was clear she wasn't going to stop until she got what she wanted. In that moment, I knew that whatever was about to happen, nothing would ever be the same. There were forces in play beyond anything I could imagine. I wasn't just talking to an alien. She was talking to me, trying to understand us, to understand what it means to be human. And if I let her in, everything could change. Would I risk everything just to satisfy her curiosity? Would I answer her strange request, knowing the potential consequences? Before I could decide, she stepped back, watching me closely, as if reading my hesitation. "You don't have to answer yet," she said, her tone almost teasing. "But I'd like to know, really know, what it feels like." I was left with no easy answer, and as I stood there, contemplating the weight of her words, the sun began to set behind us, casting long shadows over the landscape. The world felt different, shifted somehow, and all I could think about was what came next. What would she do next? What would I do? Would I give in to the unknown or walk away from something that could change everything about who we are? The question lingered, unresolved, as I faced her, and the unknown that lay ahead. I couldn't tear my eyes away from her, as if her presence had some magnetic pull. My pulse was hammering in my ears, but it wasn't just fear. It was something deeper, something that connected me to her in a way I didn't understand. She stood there, patient, watching me with those unblinking eyes, like she was studying every tiny detail about me. Every moment that passed felt like an eternity, but still, I didn't know how to respond. Was this a dream? Was I imagining all of this? Her question had been straightforward enough, but there was something off about the way she asked it. As though the simple curiosity of an alien species wasn't enough. It felt more like a demand than a request. She wasn't looking for casual information. She wanted to understand it all, really understand it. And in that instant, I realized that her fascination with us was far from innocent. She wanted more than knowledge. She wanted experience. The wind whispered around us, carrying with it the faint scent of something unfamiliar. I glanced at the ground, trying to ground myself, to regain a sense of control over my racing thoughts. But everything felt distorted, as though the laws of reality had shifted and warped in her presence. Her eyes, so filled with wonder yet laced with something darker, met mine once again. "You look unsure," she said, her voice smooth, almost coaxing. "It's okay to be confused. I understand. This is a lot for you. But if you can show me, if you can help me understand what it means to be human, I'll never forget it. You'll never forget me." The weight of her words sank into me like a stone dropped into water. I felt a deep sense of dread creeping through me, as if I was being asked to open a door I wasn't ready to open. What did she mean by that? Never forget. What was it that she was really asking for? For a split second, I felt a flicker of resistance within myself. I wanted to walk away, to tell her that this was too much, that I couldn't. No, I shouldn't. Help her understand something so intimate. It wasn't just a question of science or curiosity. This was something human, something that belonged to us, something too complex, too deeply rooted in our biology and emotions to explain to a being who wasn't even from our world. But as she stepped closer, I felt that tension in the air again. It was like the world had narrowed to just the two of us, and I couldn't look away from her. She wasn't threatening, not in a direct sense, but there was a force to her that made me feel small, insignificant. She exuded power in the most subtle of ways. There was a mystery to her, one that I couldn't unravel by simply walking away. It was tempting to ignore her request, to forget this moment altogether. But something inside me, something primal, kept me frozen in place. "I want to learn," she continued, her voice soft but insistent. "To know you, to understand how you live, how you love, how you reproduce." She paused, her gaze never leaving mine. "What does it feel like to be human? To feel everything in your body, in your soul, connected to another person?" I felt a jolt of shock. It was one thing for an alien to be curious about human biology, but the way she spoke about it, the way she seemed to want to experience it, felt too personal, too close. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. How could I even begin to explain something so deeply embedded in the human experience? The complexities of our emotions, the unspoken connections we form with others, the very nature of intimacy. How could I possibly put all of that into words for her? "Just show me," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, as if she were pleading. "I promise I won't hurt you. I only want to understand. Please, let me experience it with you." The silence between us was thick, pressing in, and I could feel the weight of her gaze on me, drawing me in. My heart was still racing, but now it was accompanied by a strange sense of curiosity. What would it be like? What was she really asking for? How could I help her understand this, if I even could? I shook my head, as though trying to clear the fog in my mind. "I don't think you understand. This is not something you can just try," I said, my voice shaking slightly, but I didn't know if I was trying to convince myself or her. "It's not just about the act. It's about everything that comes with it. The connection, the emotions, the trust. You can't just try to understand it." She didn't react immediately. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, considering my words. Then, with a soft chuckle, she said, I didn't say I wanted to replicate everything exactly, but maybe, just maybe, I could experience a piece of it, just one part. I've studied you, watched you. I know what it looks like from the outside, but what does it feel like? What is it that you humans crave that drives you to do that? I felt the blood rush to my face, a flush of embarrassment, but more than that, there was something else stirring within me, a deep, unsettling sense that there was more at play here than just her curiosity. She wasn't asking for something casual. No, she was trying to understand the very core of what it means to be human. As much as I wanted to walk away, as much as I wanted to tell her she was crazy and this was impossible, a small part of me, a part I hated to admit, was intrigued. How could she understand us if she had never felt what it means to truly be human? What would it take for her to even begin to comprehend the depth of our experience? I looked down at the ground, trying to steady myself. "You're not from here," I said, more to myself than to her. "You can't possibly understand what this is, what it means." Her gaze softened, almost sympathetically. "Maybe not, but I can learn, can't I? I've studied your people for so long. Watched how you interact, how you live, how you form bonds. I want to feel that too. To know what it means to connect with another being." She stepped closer again, her presence surrounding me like a thick fog. "I can't fully understand you unless I experience it. I need to know." I swallowed hard. My thoughts were a whirlwind of confusion and doubt. I wanted to say no, to walk away and forget this whole encounter. But her words, those words, kept echoing in my mind, stirring up something I couldn't control. The desire for connection, the pull toward something that felt like it could change everything. "You don't need to do this," I said, but the words felt hollow even to me. My mind was telling me to stop, to push her away. But my body felt like it was betraying me, drawn toward her in a way that didn't make sense. And then, just as I was about to speak again, to tell her that this was a mistake, she whispered something that stopped me dead in my tracks. "I'm not just an alien," she said softly, her voice full of quiet power. "I'm an experiment, a living, breathing test case. And you are the final piece. If you refuse, it could change everything. For both of us." I felt a shiver run down my spine. What was she talking about? What experiment? Who was she really, and what did she want from me? Before I could respond, she turned and started walking away, her figure disappearing into the growing darkness, leaving me with only one question hanging in the air. Would I follow her? Would I risk everything to find out what she meant? The tension was palpable, and I could feel it like a weight on my chest. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to get away from this alien who seemed to know too much and wanted too much. But a part of me, something deep inside, knew that I couldn't turn back. Not now. Not after everything she had said. The next few days felt like they dragged on endlessly, as if the world itself had slowed down in the wake of that strange encounter. I couldn't escape her. Her words kept echoing in my head, replaying over and over again, a constant reminder of the impossible situation I found myself in. Her gaze, those unblinking, intense eyes, haunted me. The way she spoke about us, humanity, like she could understand us from the outside, but still needed to experience it. It all felt wrong, yet there was something magnetic about it, something I couldn't shake. I tried to go about my daily life. I focused on work, on the people around me, anything to distract myself. But the more I tried to ignore her, the more she seemed to be everywhere. Her presence lingered in the back of my mind, slipping into my thoughts at the most random moments. Even in the quietest hours of the night, I could almost feel her watching me from the shadows, waiting for me to make a decision. I had tried to tell myself it was all just a misunderstanding, that I could walk away, forget about it. But deep down, I knew that wasn't possible. There was something far bigger at play here. She had said it herself. She was an experiment. And now I was tangled up in it. A week passed before I saw her again. This time, I was standing at the edge of the city, staring out into the darkened horizon, lost in my own thoughts. The stars above felt so distant, so unreachable. And yet, it felt like I was being drawn to something. like an invisible thread pulling me in a direction I couldn't understand. That's when I saw her. She was standing a few feet away, her silhouette framed by the soft glow of the streetlights. For a moment, I just stood there, frozen. It was like the air itself had shifted, charged with something I couldn't explain. She didn't say anything at first, just watched me silently. The silence between us stretched out, heavy with anticipation, with the unspoken understanding that something had to give. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but firm. "You're thinking about it, aren't you?" she asked. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. She knew. I took a deep breath, my chest tightening. I didn't want to admit it, didn't want to acknowledge that I was considering it, but the truth was undeniable. I had been thinking about it. I had been thinking about her, about what she had said, about what it would mean to cross that line. "Why me?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. "Why did you choose me for this experiment?" She tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing with something like sadness or perhaps regret. "I didn't choose you. It's never been about choice. It's about the connection. You're human, and I'm not. But there's something inside of you that could help me understand. The way you feel, the way you live. It's more than just biology. It's a need, a drive that I don't fully grasp, but I need to. I need to understand what makes you, you." I didn't know what to say to that. Her words seemed too weighty, too complicated for me to comprehend in full. But there was one thing I understood all too well. She wasn't asking for permission anymore. She wasn't waiting for me to make a decision. She was preparing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted. A chill ran down my spine as I realized the full extent of what she was asking for. This wasn't just a simple question of curiosity. It was a test of something deep within me, something I didn't even fully understand. And if I gave in, if I allowed this to happen, I wasn't just satisfying her need for understanding. I was giving away a piece of myself, a piece of what it means to be human. I looked away, unable to meet her gaze. "You don't understand," I said, my voice trembling slightly. "You can't just take that. It's not something you can understand through study or observation. It's too personal." She took a step forward, her eyes never leaving mine. "I need to understand," she repeated, her voice low and almost pleading now. "This isn't just for me. It's for both of us, for all of us. If you don't help me, if you don't show me, I might never truly understand what it means to be alive." I could feel the weight of her words settling around me, like a thick fog. My mind was spinning. Was this really happening? Was I really considering helping an alien, understand what it meant to be human? "Why do you need to understand this?" I asked, the question escaping before I could think better of it. "What happens if you don't? What happens if you do?" Her expression softened, just a fraction. "If I don't, I will never truly be able to connect with you, with anyone. I'll remain apart, an observer, always looking in, never really understanding." She paused, then added, "And if I do, if I can truly feel what you feel, I can help bridge the gap, help our people understand yours. Maybe we can live together, learn from each other. But it all starts with this." I could barely breathe. The tension in the air was so thick it felt like I was suffocating. There was no easy way out of this. If I rejected her now, I might be turning away from something that could change everything, for both of us. But if I gave in, what would that mean? What would I become? I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I was frozen in place, torn between fear, curiosity, and something I couldn't quite identify. My heart was beating so loudly in my chest that it almost drowned out everything else. Without warning, she stepped closer, her hand reaching out toward me. Her fingers brushed lightly against my skin, sending a jolt of electricity through me. The contact was soft, tentative, but it felt like a spark that ignited something deep inside. A part of me wanted to pull away, to tell her to stop. But another part of me, a part I couldn't deny, wanted to know what would happen if I didn't. "I need to feel what you feel," she whispered, her breath warm against my ear. "Please, show me." I swallowed hard. The words on the tip of my tongue burned with an intensity I couldn't ignore. The world around us had gone silent, everything but the sound of our breathing fading away. There was only the two of us standing on the precipice of something that could change the very fabric of our existence. I didn't know what would happen if I agreed. I didn't know what would happen if I didn't. But I was about to find out. And as she waited, her hand still hovering near mine, the tension between us thickened, each passing second pulling us closer to an unknown future. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for sure: nothing would ever be the same again. Just as her fingers brushed against my skin, a sharp, high-pitched sound sliced through the stillness. It wasn't a noise I could place, like a vibration that seemed to echo directly inside my head. I flinched, pulling away instinctively. The alien girl's eyes widened for a brief moment, as if she had sensed the disturbance too. Before either of us could react, the world around us seemed to shift, a strange sensation crawling up my spine. The air grew heavier, more oppressive. The streetlights flickered, and the ground beneath my feet trembled ever so slightly, like something massive was moving just beneath the surface. "What is that?" I whispered, my voice shaky, betraying the growing panic in my chest. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, her eyes darted around, searching the horizon. There was a fleeting moment of uncertainty in her expression, something I hadn't seen before. For all her calm, for all her otherworldly grace, there was a crack in her demeanor. "It's them," she said, her voice low and urgent. I barely had time to process her words before a low, rumbling noise echoed in the distance. A sudden burst of cold air swept across the street, making me shiver involuntarily. Something was coming, and it wasn't human. I stepped back instinctively, but she grabbed my arm with surprising strength, her grip tightening. "Stay with me. Do not let go," she commanded, her eyes hardening with determination. "What's happening?" I demanded, my heart racing, every instinct screaming to run. "Who's coming?" Her face was grim. "My people. You need to understand. They didn't send me here to learn. They sent me here to prepare you. You're a part of something much bigger than either of us." Before I could process that, the sound of heavy, mechanical footsteps echoed from the darkness. It was too rhythmic, too deliberate to be a natural sound. And then I saw them, figures emerging from the shadows, tall and imposing, their forms cloaked in dark armor that seemed to absorb the surrounding light. They were not human. They moved with a sense of purpose, like soldiers on a mission. The girl's grip on my arm tightened even further, her body tense, every muscle coiled in a way that suggested she was preparing for something much more dangerous than a mere encounter. "Who are they?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, dread crawling up my throat. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stepped forward, her stance shifting into something more defensive. I never meant for you to get involved in this, but it's too late now. They found me. They found us." "What do you mean, found us?" I demanded, feeling my mind race as the figures drew closer. My stomach was in knots, and all I wanted to do was run, but something kept me rooted to the spot, unable to look away from the approaching figures. "The truth is," she began, her voice trembling slightly now, "I wasn't just sent to learn. I wasn't just studying your species. I was meant to bring something back. And now they know I've failed." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind couldn't make sense of what she was saying. The girl who had come here to ask me to help her understand humanity, to experience what it meant to be human, was now telling me she wasn't who I thought she was. She wasn't just some curious alien. She was an operative, a spy. I tried to process it, to make sense of the massive shift in everything I thought I knew. "You lied to me," I said, the words coming out bitter, edged with betrayal. "I didn't lie," she replied quickly, her voice soft but insistent. "I did want to understand, but it wasn't just for me. It was for them. And now they're coming to take me back. If they catch us, it won't just be me who's in danger." I felt a shiver of fear rush through me as the figures closed the distance. There was a coldness to them that made everything inside me scream to turn and run. But I couldn't move, not with her standing right there, facing them. "Why did you need me?" I asked, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. Why me? She didn't answer immediately, her eyes flicking nervously to the approaching figures. Because you were my only chance. I needed someone who would help me understand how to live as a human, how to truly connect with you. But I couldn't let you know the full truth. If you did, it would have jeopardized everything. I was stunned. Every shred of trust I had placed in her seemed to disintegrate in the blink of an eye. But there was still a part of me, despite the betrayal, despite the fear, that couldn't look away. She wasn't just some alien scout, some cold-hearted agent. She was still her, the girl who had stood in front of me and asked those impossible questions. The girl who, despite everything, was still trying to understand humanity. The figures were closer now, almost within arm's reach. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and oppressive. One of them stepped forward, a tall, shadowy figure with a helmet that obscured its face. It raised a hand, and I could feel the air crackle with some sort of strange energy, as if it was a signal. "Is this it?" I asked her, my voice barely more than a whisper. "Is this the end of everything?" She didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a step back, pulling me with her, trying to put distance between us and the figures. "No," she said, her voice steady now, but there was a determination in her eyes I hadn't seen before. "It's not the end. Not yet. I made a mistake. I didn't think they would come this soon. But I've learned something. If we work together, if you trust me, we can still stop them." I could feel the doubt creeping in again. How could I trust her? How could I trust anyone in this situation when everything I thought I knew was unraveling right before my eyes? But then I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw the fear in her eyes. Not just fear of the figures closing in on us, but fear of failing. Fear of losing the chance to understand something she had come so far to learn. And in that moment, despite everything that had happened, I realized something else. She wasn't just trying to understand humanity. She was trying to survive. And so was I. The figures stopped just a few feet away, their presence towering over us like an unstoppable force. One of them stepped forward, its voice cold and mechanical. "You have no further use to us. You will return with us, or there will be consequences." The girl stepped in front of me, her posture strong but her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm not going anywhere with you. Not without a fight." I could hear the breath catch in my throat, the impossible tension mounting between us. And just as I thought the worst was about to unfold, she turned to me, her voice low and urgent. "You have to trust me. We're running out of time." The words hung in the air, a final plea, and I realized, whether I was ready or not, this moment would define everything. I took a deep breath, the tension in the air almost suffocating. Every fiber of my being screamed for me to run, to get as far away from these armored figures as possible. But something about the girl's resolve, her refusal to back down, made me hesitate. I had trusted her before, even when everything seemed impossible. Could I do it again now? The figure in front of us grazed a hand, a strange energy swirling around it, the air thick with something foreign, something I couldn't quite place. The others stood motionless, like silent sentinels waiting for the signal to strike. For a split second, time seemed to freeze. My heart raced, and the ground beneath us seemed to hum with an otherworldly energy. I glanced at the girl. Her eyes were focused, determined, but there was a flicker of fear there too. For the first time, I realized she wasn't as invincible as I had imagined. She wasn't just an alien, some cold experiment. She was in this fight with me. "Don't back down," she whispered, her voice steady despite the situation. "We can do this. Together." And just like that, something inside me clicked. The choice was no longer about trusting her or trusting myself. It was about surviving. It was about standing up, even when it seemed like the odds were too much to overcome. Without thinking, I stepped forward, putting myself between her and the approaching figures. My body tensed, the adrenaline surging through my veins as I faced the armored group. The leader of the group tilted its head slightly, studying me. "You've made your choice," it said, its voice cold and calculating. "There will be consequences for your defiance." But I didn't care. I wasn't going to back down. I don't care about your consequences, I said, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at my insides. We're not going with you. Not without a fight. The figure's eyes, well, I assumed it had eyes under that helmet, narrowed. It raised its hand once more, a pulse of energy gathering around it. But before it could release whatever weapon it was preparing, the girl moved. Faster than I could track, she lunged toward the figure, her movements fluid and precise, as if she had been trained for this very moment. The armored figure staggered back, clearly taken off guard, but there was no time to marvel at how quickly she moved. The others were closing in, their weapons beginning to hum with power. It was a standoff, and we were outnumbered. We need to move. Now, she shouted, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward an alley behind us. I didn't hesitate. There was no room for hesitation now. We ran, her hand still clutching mine, her breath quick and sharp in my ear as we darted between buildings, taking turns I didn't even notice, moving as if we had practiced this before. I wasn't sure how long we ran, but every second felt like an eternity. The figures were persistent, relentless. I could hear them behind us, their footsteps like thunder, but somehow, they never got closer. The girl was leading us, weaving through the city with a sense of purpose, a confidence that felt out of place given what was happening. She wasn't just running for her life, she was leading us toward something. I tried to keep up, my legs burning with the effort, my chest tightening as I struggled to keep my breath steady. Where are we going? I gasped, barely able to form the words. We're almost there, she said, glancing back briefly. You have to trust me. We're going to stop this. The city around us was quiet now, eerily so, like the calm before a storm. We came to an old warehouse, its rusted doors standing as a stark contrast to the sleek, modern city. The girl stopped in front of it, her hand resting on the door, her expression unreadable. This is it, she said, her voice almost inaudible, barely a whisper. This is where it all ends. I looked at her, confusion flooding my mind. What are we doing here? How can we stop them? She turned to face me, her eyes full of something I couldn't quite name. We don't stop them. We let them come. She looked at me, a strange intensity in her gaze. The truth is, I wasn't just learning about humans. I was gathering the last piece of information they needed, the last key to them. My heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, the last piece? She hesitated, looking away for just a moment. It's not just the aliens who were observing us. They're not just here for the knowledge. They were looking for something specific, something that you have. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. What are you talking about? Her eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw something akin to regret there. The truth is, you were never just a random human. You're the key to the entire operation, the knowledge they were after. It wasn't just for them. It was for me, too. I stared at her, the weight of her words crashing down on me. What are you saying? I was never an alien scout, she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm one of them. I was sent to find you, to bring you to them. The world seemed to collapse around me as her words hit. I had been so caught up in trying to understand her and trying to help her that I never saw the truth. She had been playing me, using me from the start. But before I could process the full meaning of her confession, a deafening crash echoed behind us. The figures had arrived, their cold, mechanical footsteps growing louder as they neared. I looked at her, heart pounding in my chest. What now? What happens next? She didn't say a word. Instead, she stepped back, leaving me standing alone in the darkened warehouse as the figures emerged from the shadows. The leader was the first to step forward, its helmeted face unreadable. You've done well, the leader said, its voice eerily calm. We've been waiting for this moment. And then, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, everything changed again. The girl, no, the alien, had never been on my side. She had never been human, but neither had I been, not entirely. The truth about our existence, about who we were and what we were meant to become, was just beginning to unfold. The stakes had just gotten much higher, and in that moment I realized that my fight for survival wasn't just about escaping anymore. It was about becoming something entirely different. The leader of the figures stepped closer, its movements slow and deliberate, as though savoring the moment. The others stood behind it, silent and watchful. I could feel the weight of their presence, the suffocating realization that I was surrounded by something I didn't fully understand. The girl, no, the alien, stood off to the side, her gaze unwavering, as though she were preparing for something inevitable. "You've led us here," the leader said in a voice that resonated deep within my chest. Now, the real transformation can begin. My mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Everything had felt so real. Her questions, her curiosity about humanity, the moments we shared. But none of it had been what it seemed. She wasn't just here to learn. She was a part of this alien force, a piece in a much larger puzzle. And I, unknowingly, had been caught in the middle of it all. "You lied to me," I said, the words coming out bitter, raw. "You never cared about understanding humanity. You were only using me." Her eyes softened, the briefest flicker of regret crossing her face. "It wasn't like that," she said quietly. "I didn't want this. I didn't want to betray you." "You didn't have a choice, did you?" I shot back, my anger mixing with hurt. "You were never on our side." "I was never meant to be," she admitted, her voice low. "I was sent to find you because you were important. But what I learned, what I felt, made it harder than I ever imagined. I never expected to care. Not for you. Not for humans." I looked at her, seeing her in a new light, someone who had never truly chosen her own path. She was a pawn in something larger, just like me. And somehow, that made it all more tragic. The leader gestured toward the others, and one of the armored figures stepped forward, its motion swift and precise. "We've waited long enough," it said. "The transformation is ready to begin." A cold shiver ran down my spine. Transformation. What did that mean? What was about to happen? But before the figure could move any closer, the alien girl stepped forward, her hands raised, palms outstretched, a soft, glowing energy radiating from her fingertips. The air hummed with an unnatural energy, and the figures paused, momentarily unsure. She turned to face me, her expression hardening. "You don't have to be afraid," she said, her voice steady now. "I know you feel betrayed, but there's a bigger picture here. You're part of it. You always have been." I didn't understand. How was I part of this? And why had she said she didn't want to betray me? The pieces didn't add up, but there was something in her eyes that made me hesitate. It wasn't just regret. It was determination. She wasn't lying. Not entirely. She had been torn between her mission and her feelings, and that, in some strange way, made her more human than anything. "We've reached the moment of truth," she continued. "The choice is yours. You can join us, become part of something that will change the future of your species, or you can walk away. But know this, if you walk away, you'll never truly be human again. You'll always be an outsider, someone who never understood their place in this universe." I felt my heart race as I processed her words. The future of humanity, a place in the universe, what was she asking me to do? A moment of silence passed before the leader stepped forward again, its voice cold and firm. "Time is running out. You must decide." I looked from the leader to the girl, feeling the weight of the choice pressing down on me. My mind screamed to run, to escape, to find a way out of this mess I had never asked to be a part of. But the girl, she had trusted me with her truth, no matter how difficult it was for her to admit. Maybe I owed it to both of us to face the consequences. "You're right," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I know one thing. I won't be controlled. Not by you. Not by anyone." The girl's eyes widened in surprise, but there was something else there, a flicker of admiration. "I understand," she said softly. "You're stronger than I gave you credit for." The leader raised a hand, its patience wearing thin. "You've made your choice. Prepare for the consequences." But before anything could happen, a sudden, unexpected explosion shook the ground beneath us. The force sent us all to the floor, the noise deafening, the air thick with dust and debris. I looked up in confusion, my ears ringing, only to see something that made my heart leap in my chest. A group of humans, armed and ready, had arrived, storming into the warehouse. They were led by a man I didn't recognize, but there was no mistaking the fierce determination in his eyes. He looked directly at the alien figures, his weapon aimed squarely at them. "This is where it ends," the man said, his voice commanding, resolute. The armored figures hesitated for the briefest moment, but it was enough. The balance of power had shifted. Without a word, they began retreating, their movements quick and practiced. The alien girl and I exchanged a glance, the briefest flicker of hope sparking between us. It wasn't over yet. There was still a chance to take control of our fate. The man and his group quickly secured the area, ensuring that no more figures would arrive. They turned their attention to us, and I could see the tension in their eyes, the suspicion in the way they studied us. "Are you okay?" the man asked, his voice gruff but filled with concern. I nodded, still processing everything that had happened, but my gaze remained fixed on the alien girl. She had been caught between two worlds, two missions, and in the end, she had chosen her humanity, if only for a moment. She hadn't been the villain in this story. She had been a victim of her circumstances, just like me. As the group of humans moved to take control of the situation, I stood there, reflecting on everything that had happened. The alien world, the mysterious figures, the girl who had come into my life and turned everything upside down. What had started as a simple encounter had become a journey into the unknown, one that had tested me, changed me, and made me question what it meant to be human. But in the end, I realized something. No matter where we came from, no matter what had been done to us, we all had a choice. And that choice was what made us who we were. As the dust settled and the final pieces of the puzzle fell into place, I couldn't help but feel a sense of resolve. The story wasn't over. There was still more to learn, more to discover, and as long as I had the strength to keep moving forward, I would face whatever came next with everything I had. Because in the end, that's what humanity was all about: surviving, adapting, and never giving up. And that was a story I could live with.